So yeah, I brushed my hair. There was nothing that I could see that I wanted my daughter to be able to move into when school finished, and I couldn't see how I was gonna cope or care for her without that support of like the school system, which basically is a program where she goes to day to day. I mean, there is some programs through local disability organisations, but to me it's not being part of our community. Like, it's stuffing a bunch of disabled people in a place and pretending to have fun or whatever, and maybe they do have fun, but to me it's like, that's not where I want my daughter to live her life. Like, what happens when I die? I think that's the number one question of most parents who have a child with a disability. Like, she's just going to be looked after in those kinds of environments. And the thing that I really worry about in those kinds of environments is because it's all like disabled people, this is going to sound really bad, but there's no accountability. There's no like personal accountability that you would have, say, if you were working in, like, say in the council or an office or somewhere where there was normal able people. And I say that because because people are disabled, it's like, we think they're not 100% there, they can't get us in trouble, and I think just normal, so we're not 100% accountable. And a lot of the time in those environments or situations, there's no normal people, like, there's not the normal accountability that you have of, like, other people seeing how you do your job, what you do. From my experience of going into some, like a residential care place was one, where apparently the staff were stealing food out of the pantry. Another story, but yeah, like I walked in there. There was like two people with cerebral palsy, like disabled people at either ends of the table in the building there where I walked in. One of them was going, like pointing on to something on the ground, and I just like walked in and said like, hello, and like seeing what she was pointing to, and picked it up for her and gave it back to her, and then she was happy. Like, I don't know how long she'd been sitting there for, and I'm like looking around, like walk through another room and find 3 staff in the office, blah 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 blahing away about something their boss had said that morning or done, or I don't know if it was an actual meeting or just start discussion, but yeah, it was like there's 3 staff in an office gas bagging and 2 disabled people out there, and when with no supervision, or this lady obviously had a need that those staff are being paid to meet, and yet they're just talking away in the office. If they were on a break, they shouldn't have all been on a break at the same time. And this is the interesting thing. It's like what I'm saying about accountability, like, people think there's no one watching them. Like, as soon as I went in there, they were suddenly like, oh, like, they didn't expect me. I didn't say I was coming. And I was watching like what do you call them, those online classes, and it was psychology, no, it was philosophy, and maybe it was just philosophy. And this lecturer was saying about, like, it's scientifically proven that, I don't know if this is science, but anyway. But if you have like a coffee machine, you know, like your donation tea and coffee, and it's just by donation, like in the, don't know where, if it was an office or wherever it was. If you just have like a normal picture or flowers or pretty pattern, something like that, above the coffee and tea, people won't be honest all the time. Like they won't really be accountable and put in the donation. Whereas if you have a painting of like a set of eyes, like looking, there's something about it in our psychology that makes us, the feeling of being watched or whatever it is, that makes us more accountable. And in those places where they had the eyes painted on the wall, there was a huge, like a really big difference in the amount of honest donations that were given. So yeah, I find that it's like, you know, in a way it's human nature. These kind of institutions, or I don't like calling them institutions, but you know, homes for the disabled, it's set up in a way that lowers people's own accountability. And, you know, we are only human. I'm not trying to point a finger or trying to, you know, cause a freaking inquisition or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, there must be ways and means for us to set up a culture or a way to care for people with disabilities that keeps us accountable. I mean, like, I think if there was CCTV in those places where the parents could see at any time what their kid was doing. I mean, most of the people in there were grown adults. My friend's son had just gone in there. He was a young adult. But, you know, if people knew that people could see what they do there, like, I think there would be a different behaviour and different culture. And it's not about the being looked at or being watched or performance or something like that. It's just, for me, it's just accountability. You know, if you're paid to do a job, fucking do the job. You know, don't sit around and gas bag and sit on your ass, or, you know, there's this culture around disabilities where, you know, how we see disabled people, how we treat them, you know, like how you can become like a bit blasé as a staff, or, I mean, I don't know, maybe the nursing staff would have had a bit of experience in that, but I just feel like, you know, I don't want my kid to go and live in an institution, and yet I know, like, I can't cope with her on my own. Like, I can't cope with her now on my own. And this is another thing I wanted to get into, is the actual mental state of, as a carer, that, like, my daughter's like a perpetual toddler, you know, like, she's been like a toddler for the last 13 years, 12, 13 years. So she's never grown out of that stage. And, you know, like, usually everyone knows what it's like to have a toddler. Like, it's like you constantly have to watch them. You constantly, you know, have to make sure they're not endangering themselves, you know, constantly, like, you know, make sure they're not going on the road, not, you know, not going to, you know, that for like 12 years. Like, my brain seriously is like, it feels like my brain's split in half. It's like I've got one thing where, you know, I just can't do anything, focus on anything for longer than 4 or 5 minutes without having to turn around and see what she's doing. And when I did get to go on retreat a bit over a year ago, and finally had that break, totally just went somewhere where I couldn't just go and keep on doing what I usually do, working, cleaning the house. I went overseas. I went somewhere where there was solar electricity, but I was just totally had my own little space, just a bed, a mosquito net, and a little table and stuff, and a nice window. I was in nature, so it was nurturing and healing, I guess, and just I just felt it's like 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 when you let a balloon go, like for nearly a week it took for my brain to sort of come back to normal, because I'm in the state at the moment, I've been needing a retreat for the last few months, because my brain is just constantly go, 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 watching Freyr. I've just put her in the respite house yesterday, so I'm at the start of having a break for a few days, but it's not really going to be a retreat, I don't think. And it gets to this point as a carer, when your brain is like that I feel like I can't have normal conversations with people. It's like I've kind of gone into this emotional blank state, and I can't enjoy being with other people, really. It's an effort to try and get my brain to converse with people, I don't know, I'm just exhausted. But yeah, so when I'd been on my retreat last time, or I felt during it, just that the gradual kind of coming back to some kind of feeling of being normal and being able to be in my own world and life and being enough for long enough to be able to feel safe in, I don't know if it's safe, but in having any kind of life of my own, I guess. To be able to have my own, explore my own sort of adventures or my own interests, or go traveling somewhere, go on adventure somewhere, sit somewhere, talk with people, oh my God. Yeah, that was very, oh my God, amazing. But it shouldn't be amazing, I should be able to, I shouldn't be pushed to this point of total exhaustion and breakdown. That's why I've been several times in the last bit over a year and a half. And my feeling about the whole thing is I don't want my daughter to be someone's job, and I have had enough, some experiences, and I've just spent 2, 3, 4 months living in Bali, and only just recently been to experience a school program or school there where and my whole experience of being in Asia the last year and a half has been it's when I'm there with her, things just feel a hell of a lot easier, because people are more feel a sense of responsibility as a whole group, as a family. I don't feel it's my individual responsibility to check on you know, be responsible for every single thing she's doing. Like, you know, there's other kids that come in and interact with her, play with her. It's like a natural sort of social family interaction that takes that weight off me. And it's not that I'm not responsible for her or something, but it just makes it a lot easier than when I'm here and I'm totally in Australia and, you know, have this like sole responsibility for her. So yeah, there's like this sense of people have a shared empathy or sense of care for everyone that's sort of in their environment. So